What's going on, y'all? It's Kamz here. Welcome to the Black Show. I know y'all done seen a bunch of content from me, and I'm just gonna keep flooding it, keep it flowing. Today's episode of the Black Show is an important one, I think, though, especially for like anybody that's listening that is going through that growth stage that I went through too, and I'm still going through currently. This is like a everyday up and down process. So what I say, don't take it as like, oh, that's just it's set in stone. It's a ebb and flow to it a little bit. But the topic of the day is how I stop letting my emotions decide my decisions, like the actual process of how I did that. So when I was a kid, I used to be super super shy. Like when I from to like 4 or really until I went to like started going to garden homes. I didn't really talk to nobody outside of my family. Granted, I was around a lot of my family, so I was still talking to a lot of people. But if you wasn't in my immediate family, I didn't really mess with you. So I don't really trust a lot of people in general. As a kid, I didn't trust nobody. I've always been like hyper aware. So I've always had ADHD, and it showed like now, especially working with kids with ADHD, I gotta do my regular life. Um, Now going back, it makes so much sense in some of the development stuff of like why I did certain stuff. So like I'll give a good story. I remember my first week at Riverside. I was actually in bilingual classes. Everybody thinks I'm Dominican, and I don't know why. I even got that when I was down in New Orleans too. Everybody thinks I'm Dominican. Like they try to speak Spanish to me. I'm like, I'm not, bro. Um, I mean, I might as well be from my dating history. But my first uh week of school, I was in bilingual classes. I was in the Spanish bilingual like classes, and then after that, like so after classes and stuff, like I went that whole week not talking to any of my classmates besides my teachers and my coaches. And it's a trust thing with me. Like I have a not anymore though, but growing up I had a really 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 bad fear of rejection. So like anything like that, it's a no go for me. Like I'm not going for it. I'm not gonna even try it. And then like transitioning to like when I was an adult, I went from like Milwaukee to Stevens Point, and like in Stevens Point, it could get super lonely if you don't have a group to be with. Cause yes, it's a beautiful town. It was a great place to go to college, but it's kind of dependent on your group. And like I was not really sheltered as a kid at all, but I've never really been a partier like that, and I never really experienced that. Like I was always like, okay, we playing basketball, then we playing basketball. It's football season, we playing football. That's probably a little bit of the tism, but it's also like I lock in on the stuff I want. So, because I'm like, all right, I know it takes work to achieve it. Like I've always known that. And I realize some people don't realize that now. But and the group I was around in college, like I talk negatively about them sometimes, but all in all, it's not really their fault of like it's just the personalities that don't match with my personality. And they were a more socially dominant group. Like I was like hanging with the cool kids pretty much, and the cool kids that would have been cool at that time, if that makes sense. From what the activity, so we was partying and we was doing that. So I was kind of like just going along, and if I did speak up in that group, usually I got immediate pushback. So it switched my brain during them years because it was probably like 10 years I hung out with them. Um, it switched my brain into going 10 or 12, something around that. To whenever I get into conflict, to go all the way because I'm like I was getting challenged by people that was one just naturally just physically bigger than me, but also had more sway in the group because there's a couple in the group that never really fucked with me, and I realize that now, like the outside of the group just kind of played along with that, and that's kind of why I just disconnected from everybody. So it wasn't me even being mad at everybody. It was like there's certain people that in that group that I wouldn't be around no more because I saw and I knew things that had happened. So, and like if you silence equals agreement to me. So instead of like going to the negative, super negative side of that and like gossiping behind the back and like talking bad about people and all of that, I just started telling my experience. So, but I wouldn't just give it away for free. I know on the early black shows, I talked a lot about that, but that was more like therapy sessions for sure. So I'm glad I did that too, because it weeded out certain people. It pissed off the right people to make them do actions that I could exit out my life for good with no question. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm good with the end result. Was it probably the smartest thing to do at the time? I don't know, but I'm okay with what the result led to. And so I started speaking about my experience, and then while I was speaking about my experience, it made me self reflect on like how, why am I so like defensive when it comes to like a conflict situation? And for me, it was more of that was like I'd rather just get this over with. Cause that's how my personality kind of is. Like I don't really bask in the success of stuff. It's like, all right, we did what we're supposed to do. Let's get it done. And I like that about myself, but I had to tailor it a little bit differently. So the way I kind of switch this up now is I still meet conflict at the head. Like, so if anybody has conflict with me, I call them directly. I don't do the speak around or none of that stuff. Like, I go directly to the source. One, I realize that most misunderstandings are misunderstandings, and people say stuff sometimes that they may feel in the moment, but not necessarily me. So like, and I'm very great. People think that I'm super harsh. I'm very graceful with that. It's certain lines I don't allow people to cross because of past traumas and stuff too, but also just it's a respect thing for me. But I rather not. So wait, let me see. But yeah, like no, as I said, if something is gonna happen, but like if it, I don't like having a situation on my mind. That's what I was trying to say. I'm like, I got some notes in my hand. Y'all can't tell, so on my phone. But so I'd rather not have it on my mind because I'm gonna constantly be thinking about it. Let's just get the shit over with right now. And like that's just my motto. Like that's what I said. If somebody want to fight, I remember it was one lame dude. He is the lame one. Like out of that, like yeah, super lame because he was maliciously trying to do shit. Sneaky little sneaky ass white boy. But and not the one that y'all I used to talk about. It was one that I met through somebody that was also fucking crazy. But it was one time he was talking slick, and we was on Instagram or something was on one of my posts, and it was like, and all the niggas was wrong because it was the COVID stuff. But this is an example of the old me, or like the me right before I kind of like figured out like, bro, these motherfuckers ain't even worth that time. But he said something slick, and I responded back. I was like, where you at, bro? And he responded back like, oh, I'm at work. I was like, what time you get off? And I don't think he knew where I was going with that, but I was like, hey, so at 4:30, I'm gonna be at Pura Vida. Just meet me up there, bro. I'm not gonna do this back and forth talking with you. And his response was like, oh, you just trying to fight somebody? I'm like, I just told you meet me at an MMA gym. If I want to just fight somebody, I'm there already. Like I could just do that. Like I want to fight you because you talking shit and you talking like you never got beat up before. So people that talk like people that never got beat up or never got jumped before or never had anything like seriously happen violence wise, they talk like they don't understand that like words have consequences, bro. And I'm not gonna play around with you. So they had to get that side of my personality, but he tried to like frame it as like, oh, he beat it, and I bet that fed into a narrative that that whole group was saying about me being angry or crazy or some shit. But I just say, look at niggas' lives now. And then so also another this is a big thing that like switched it over for me. I taught myself to pause. Like when I get in a situation, I'm like, all right, or because conflict is gonna happen, right? And when you get in a situation with conflict, it's normal to have your heart rate rise because if it's something that you in conflict about, that means it's something that you're passionate about. That means something you believe in. If you're worth having a conflict over it. It's two things I say to myself, two or three things I say to myself. The first thing is like, am I willing to go to jail over this? Because as a man, that's something that you always have to, especially as a black man, you always have to have in your brain, like, because even if you're in the right, you still may go to prison. Like, you have to be willing to go, and it's some shit that, and that's different for every man. So I can't say like, oh no, something you shouldn't want. Like that's gonna be a scale, but you got to ask your question: that am I willing to give time of my life up for this situation right now? The second thing I ask is like, am I really mad at this person, or am I letting my emotions from other situations affect this situation, and this is just the outlet? And I think that's the big thing for a lot of people, like especially kids, because they be pissed about like their parents and they live in situations, a bunch of shit. Like especially when I was working with at risk kids, you see this all the time, and they take it out in other areas, and that's just it's more it's a symptom, not the illness, if that makes sense. And the third one I asked, like, is this an actual threat? And that's usually comes first in the category. Like, is this an actual threat? Cause like it's some people that's actual threats that you gotta address, like, and I know people that probably watch my on Facebook, we watching, they see it that way. Like I address different people a certain way. So if I don't know you personally at all, never met you, and then you keep going counter to what I'm saying and it was some dude that kept doing this on Facebook. And I don't know you. I don't want to start no beef, so I'm just gonna remove you as a friend. Because if you keep doing it, then I'm gonna get annoyed, and then I start to see you as targeting me. And if you target me as a man, now you're a threat to me. And if it's a threat, I go full go on threats. Like, and that's because one, people crazy and you can't play around, but I'd rather remove myself from the situation than go full go, if that makes sense. The other thing, the next kind of thing I said, like, if it's a woman, I'm probably just gonna stop talking to her, because I really truly live by the belief of it's especially coming from a relationship where I had somebody that was super argumentative and just like, dog, just chill. Like, you don't even want to, like, shorty, just chill. Like, we gotta do this shit all the time. I have zero tolerance for that now, because I realize if I'm arguing with you, if we have to argue, then we just not meant to be, and that's okay. But I'm not gonna waste my time with you and sit here. You could do that with somebody else, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I wish that guy the best, because I'm not gonna be that guy that's gonna sit here and argue with you and try to change your mind on shit. Like, you kind of got to either be on program or not. And if it's women, like public women, so it's not like on a romantic level, I just don't like unpleasant women. So if you do unpleasant shit, we're not going to be friends, because I'm not going to be around you. So it's not an issue really for me in that. And if it's online too, and this is kind of, so that's closed off, like, on the women's topic. So disrespect online, like, I'll be respectful until I feel like you're being disrespectful and trying to be slick with the disrespect. Because most people be trying to do shit and they're like, it's very obvious what you're doing, bro. And I could go OC, but I'm just going to block you instead, because I hurt your feelings. Like, that's another reason why I didn't talk a lot as a kid, and probably more as an adult, because, like, when I do go 10, I hurt, because I can read people, so I hurt motherfuckers' feelings. Like, I could talk about your deepest insecurities. I see it. So I could talk about you getting fat when you used to be an athlete and not thinking you acceptable in a group, and all your friends went to college and you didn't go to college. I can really get down deep and dirty like that. So I learned to, like, not do that, because I don't want to hurt feelings, and I don't want nobody to get, like, on no other shit because they mad about a back and forth that me and them had. Like, so I'll just block the person and move on, usually, if they get OC on the internet. Like, the internet is not a mandatory that I have to be friends with anybody. So it's my choice. And the only time that, like, I escalate now is when somebody becomes a physical threat, and that's your decision, because I'm gonna always try to de-escalate. I'll never try to, like, push it or force it. But once you cross a certain line with me, then I put it this way, and I wrote it in here. So once somebody threatens me physically, I respond with overwhelming force immediately, and I have no second guesses. I have no afterthoughts. I have no regrets about that, because what I learned is, if someone's responding with threat, they already don't value you or their life or the situation. So if you become at me violently and you're a man, I respond with overwhelming force. And, like, because we're gonna end this up, and you put yourself in my zone. I've been doing kickboxing jiu-jitsu for a long time. So ACLs and knees and arm bars and shoulders, man, you better have some good insurance, or you better do what you got to do, because I'm not gonna really play back and forth. But I try my best to never let it get to that point, because it's silly, because it's really nothing in this world besides my family that anybody can say to me or really do to me that hasn't been done over this last 2 years. It currently still being done, I think. I don't care anymore. But so my skin is extremely thick when it comes to shit like that. So I don't know if that'll help, but that's just my story of how I stopped letting, or the kind of strategies I used of how I stopped letting my emotions kind of dictate my decisions in my everyday life. So maybe it'll help, maybe not, but, you know, a lot of my content on here is for, like, my young G's. Football season started, man. I'm gonna try to check in with most of y'all cats. Like, if I don't get to a game, I'm I'm gonna at least check in with your parents and shit though. But I'm gonna try to get to everybody's game. Well, at least one of most people's games. Try to time up when a couple of y'all play each other. Um, it's dope having kids that I work with that are play all across the country, but it sucks because I can't really watch them play no more because Blueprint ain't making that much money. Blueprint Sports ain't making that much money, and just do it well, but we ain't make it fly across the country every Saturday, buddy. Give me an NIL deal. They give me an NIL deal to support y'all athletes, the ones that's the high risk ones to keep them in college. I guarantee I could do it. It's Kenny Kamz, y'all. I'm out. Peace. Like, comment, and subscribe for me too.